Hey everyone, it's Crypto Intel, and today I want to talk about institutional investors becoming involved with the cryptocurrency markets. So back in 2017, we saw a lot of interest from retail investors, and these were your average consumers that were noticing price fluctuations, and they were reading articles about Bitcoin hitting 10K and passing 10K, and they're your sort of mom and pop investors wanting to invest in the market, and as a result of this, we did get a big bull run at the end of the year. But going into 2018, there seems to be a transition, or at least we're seeing the beginning of a transition from retail investor to institutional investor. We haven't seen the results of this on the market yet, but it's entirely possible that when institutional money enters cryptocurrency, we could see an even bigger bull run than last year. In fact, DataDash, who is the largest cryptocurrency YouTuber at the moment, expects we might see Bitcoin ETFs and more regulatory clarity this year. And he suggests that could lead to a Bitcoin price of $40,000 to $50,000 by the end of the year. So I don't see this as too much of a stretch, especially considering how much interest there seems to be from institutions right now. And a lot of this information is kind of flying under the radar. A lot of the stuff, if it was announced last year, would have resulted in a huge bull run, but because the market seems to be disenchanted right now, we aren't seeing the volume or the price action that you'd expect. So we'll start off by talking about Goldman Sachs. So Goldman Sachs is the fifth largest bank in the United States. They've announced that they will be opening a crypto trading desk to trade Bitcoin futures. So that's not an exchange. They won't be trading actual cryptocurrencies, but they are open to doing that after receiving some regulatory clarity. Now, this is kind of a theme amongst these institutions and institutional investors. They want to become more involved, but they are waiting for the SEC to release better guidelines. So you have to imagine that in order for an institution to feel comfortable trading billions of dollars in a market, they have to know the rules and guidelines so they don't get into trouble and lose all of that money. So this trading desk was announced in May, and they expect the trading desk to begin in the near future, and we'll look to see if we can get more information on this in June. So up next, we've got the New York Stock Exchange, which is the largest stock exchange in the world. And their parent company is the Intercontinental Exchange. They're working on a cryptocurrency trading platform. So this is not futures or derivatives or contracts of any kind. They're actually talking about building a cryptocurrency exchange, just like Coinbase or Binance. So the New York Stock Exchange has a market cap of $19 trillion. When you compare this to the market cap of cryptocurrency as a whole, which right now is around $318 billion, you can imagine the kind of impact that the New York Stock Exchange could have on this market. And we're actually starting to talk about investors who have enough money to absolutely flip the crypto market completely on its head. Now, there isn't a date set yet for this exchange, but from what I can tell, it seems they are working to have something released soon. So this is another thing we'll want to keep an eye on going into June and the rest of 2018. Now, behind the New York Stock Exchange, Nasdaq is the second largest stock exchange in the world, and they will be partnering with Gemini, that's the Winklevoss exchange, to support Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Stellar. With a market cap of $8 trillion, when you combine that with the New York Stock Exchange market cap, which is $19 trillion, it really starts to paint a picture of the impact that these exchanges can have on the marketplace. So back on April 27th, an article was released on Nasdaq.com called 5 Reasons Now is the Time to Buy Cryptocurrency. And so here are their 5 reasons. They talk about the positive price action, the changing and evolution of money, and most interesting, the third point that they cite is, quote, because cryptocurrency is not a financial bubble. Now this is on Nasdaq.com, right? It is such a definitive stance for an exchange to take, one that has a $9 trillion market cap. Their fourth and fifth reasons are that it is gaining widespread acceptance and that it provides better security than other methods. But cryptocurrency is not a financial bubble. That's very interesting. So Coinbase recently announced their suite of institutional products. These include Coinbase Custody, Coinbase Markets, Coinbase Prime, and the Coinbase Institutional Coverage Group. So Coinbase is seeking to provide a deeper pool of liquidity for their institutional investors, and they're also seeking to be compliant with the SEC and the CFTC. And in fact, Coinbase Institutional Coverage Group is composed of several people, including members of the SEC and CFTC. So this gives so much credibility and instills so much confidence in institutional investors knowing that Coinbase is working directly with the SEC to be compliant. Remember that so many institutions are just waiting for the regulatory clarity before becoming involved in this space, and Coinbase is looking to make sure they are completely compliant. So this is so big for those institutional investors. In addition to this, Coinbase has been preparing for a huge increase in trading, having doubled their engineers. They increased their transaction capacity by 1,000% since Q3, and they do expect to double their transaction capacity again this year. They have a total of 1,000 workers, which includes employees and contractors, and a fifth of all their employees are working specifically on compliance with regulation. So all this to me suggests that Coinbase is expecting institutional money to be joining the market soon. It would not be surprising to me if, since they are working so closely with the SEC, perhaps they know the direction that the SEC plans to take. Considering they are already working closely with the SEC, it wouldn't make sense for them to be doubling down on their transaction capacity and on their workforce if they expected the SEC would be over-regulating crypto in the USA. In fact, they are pushing their own ETFs to be traded to institutional investors, and the SEC hasn't even given ETFs the green light yet. So back in January, the SEC denied requests for ETFs, but then recently the CBOE, which is the Chicago Board of Exchange, requested ETFs for their exchange, and the SEC is now considering a rule change which would allow 2 ETFs to be traded. And those would be the ProShares Bitcoin ETF and the ProShares Short Bitcoin ETF. Now, bear in mind that Bitcoin ETFs that are approved by the SEC bring in an enormous amount of regulatory clarity, and many institutional investors that have been wanting to take part in crypto will see this as a green light for becoming involved in the market. So just to wrap things up, we're seeing a transition from retail investor to institutional investor as all these institutions look to the SEC for clarity. And big players like the New York Stock Exchange, Nasdaq, and Goldman Sachs are getting on board and looking to play a part in this market this year. And we're also seeing Coinbase become a hyper-compliant exchange with deep pools of liquidity and products intended for institutional investors. They're also working directly with the SEC and the CFTC to remain compliant. The SEC is changing their tone to be more positive towards cryptocurrency. So, in conclusion, it looks like the big players will help to shape this marketplace. We may see an increase in institutional interest, and if things continue in this way, who knows, we may actually see a 40 to 50k Bitcoin this year. So thanks for watching this video. Let me know in the comments what you think about the possibility of a $50,000 Bitcoin and what you think of these institutions getting involved in the marketplace. I hope you will like this video. Please subscribe for more content like this in the future. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys in the next one.